I love my job, and I never thought I would be doing this. I had no idea what I wanted to do with myself, but I knew I wanted to work with my hands. I work at Legoland Studios Carlsbad, and I'm a designer.
I used to be a congressional staffer, but that job just wasn't quite satisfying my creative side. So when I heard about a contest that was going to look for a new model designer at Legoland, California, I jumped at the chance because I'd always worked with Lego as a kid and just didn't really stop. So I didn't win the contest, but I did well enough that a year later when I went back to get a job, they remembered me and hired me. And since then, I've gone from designing individual Lego models to designing entire Lego cities. I'm Andy, and I'm a layout designer at Legoland Studios Carlsbad.
I grew up in an artistic household. Both of my parents are working commercial designers. So it wasn't too much of a stretch for me to go and study art at UCLA. But I took it a little bit of a step further and studied film on top of that because I wanted to learn how to create worlds. Well, when I graduated, it was a little bit rough economic situation to try and find your first job. So I had to broaden my horizons and look for other types of careers where I could apply those same skills. And in doing so, I discovered a career I didn't even realize existed. I'm Megan, and I'm a Lego model builder.
What's special about us all is we're all very creative and different.
But what brings us together is that we never grew up.
And we all found our way to the amazing team at Legoland Studios Carlsbad.
So we work in Carlsbad with about 35 other people, just like this guy right here. They're not all as weird. We have a ton of bricks we can choose from, about 10,000 different Lego pieces and 57 different colors. That's a lot of bricks that we have to deal with. We actually have 3 full-time people taking care of our brick stock, and you can see right here in this warehouse, on hand we have 1,000 boxes of Lego for us to use every day.
So what are we doing with all those bricks? Well, we're building Lego models for Lego attractions, Legoland attractions all over the world. But one of the main focuses we have is something called Miniland. And you may have seen it if you've been to Legoland, but it's miniature cities, but it's not just miniature buildings, it's miniature cars and miniature benches, miniature streetlights, trash cans, and miniature people. And our goal is to take these Lego bricks and create a living, breathing city. And that's got a lot of challenges to it. So when I started as a layout designer, and that meant I'm the one trying to figure out what models we're going to build and how we're going to build them, I was very new. I just got thrown into it. And there were a lot of new things to think about, like, hey, we're going to put these Lego bricks outside where they're not really supposed to go because you always build them inside. So we're going to have to deal with weather, and it's going to be in Florida. So by the way, can you figure out what to do in case like a tornado hits and make sure that the Lego models don't come apart? But that stuff was relatively easy compared to figuring out what models are we going to make? And so I started to develop a map, and I kind of got a little bit stuck because we'd always been asked to make a Miniland city before, just one city, and this time we were being asked to build the entire state of Florida. So our resources were really kind of split, and I had to make this little mental leap. Well, I used to be a model designer, and I would take bricks and I would figure out new ways to put them together, and I realized now it's not just bricks I'm working with, but the cities themselves are my bricks. So where they had all been separate before, now I'm trying to figure out how to put them together and make them connect and support one another. And that way, we started to create a full city scene that each represented all these different places in Florida. So these are just some of the views we started to create in 3D, and this is a process of developing just to make sure things are going to look good. And we have to also make sure that they look good at day and night as well. So you can see that these are both Lego models, but we had to make sure that the colors were going to look good in the day, and then when we lit the models up at night, it was also going to work together. So once we figured out all those details, it was time to hand the planning over of the individual models to our model design team, and Mandy can tell you about that.
So as a designer, what I will do is Andy will give me a model, and in this case, it was the Ernest Hemingway house in Key West. And I will look at research pictures that we've collected, I'll do research online, and I'll even look at your vacation photos, so you never know if you actually might end up in Legoland and not know at all. Designing for me is kind of like building a caricature. You take the most important features and you want to bring those out and make sure that people can see them. Here, right now, you can see is a Lego window versus the real window. And it's really important we get as much detail as possible. And one of the ways we do that is by thinking outside of the brick and thinking bricks don't just stack up, they can stack sideways.
So the term we have for that is called studs not on top. And it's just one of the ways that we think outside the brick. A stud, by the way, is that little dot on the Lego brick, in case you weren't sure. And mathematicians have actually worked out that with just 6 Lego 2x4 bricks, like Megan's got right here, you can stack them up and make over 900 million different unique combinations. But if those mathematicians tried to come and build Miniland, they get stuck really fast because, again, you need to think beyond the brick a little bit and figure out, okay, these pieces need to be flipped on their side, or how can we use this piece this way and differently? And we call that studs not on top, so where we're building in different directions and we're thinking about the pieces differently.
Here's an example of just things that we can do. It's like drawing a picture with the Lego, turning them on their sides, every which way direction. Now, going back to the Ernest Hemingway house, what I'll do is I'll build a prototype where I'll build the littlest amount I can build to hand to someone like Megan.
Now, this might not seem like too much, but it actually gives me all of the necessary information I need to complete that final model. It gives me the size of the model. It gives me key details, like the windows that Mandy showed you earlier, or a doorway. But a lot of times what I'll get is, oh yeah, here's one window, but there are actually 30 in the house. So a lot of times I have to figure out those logistics, make sure that everything fits in, make sure it all fits the footprint that Andy gave to Mandy in order to make sure everything fits together in that final scheme. But what they're not showing you here is the stuff that goes on the interior of that model. In order for us to do that really awesome lighting that you saw in that early photo, I need to make sure that I incorporate structures to accommodate that cool stuff.
Now we have our finished model, and these are both Lego models. This is not one of the houses, if you're confused. But there's one thing we like to think about. We want to go all the way down to the smallest detail. And when I was doing research online about Ernest Hemingway, I noticed he had a particular special pet he liked that still lives there to this day.
Which is the polydactyl cat, which means they have 6 toes instead of 5.
So what we did is we designed little cats, and to this day there are 50 cats living in the house. So we made 50 Lego cats and sprinkled them around the inside and outside of the house to give it more personality.
Now, we didn't stop there. Ernest Hemingway's house is obviously a big deal for Key West, so that is one of several types of influences we'll use to populate the rest of Miniland. So in this case, Key West actually hosts an Ernest Hemingway lookalike competition every year. So we actually built a bunch of little lookalikes. Some of these guys even have small little polydactyl cats. But one of the challenges you face, particularly with the small scale models, is we need to get as much mileage as we can out of Lego pieces. Now, when you guys have built with sets, you have something like a banana. Okay, it's a banana. How many uses can you get out of that? Well, here you see, it looks like a ponytail. But there are kinds of other uses you can come up with too as well. Sometimes you'll take something like a construction hat that has one use, now has 2. But of course, it's not enough for us to just do one reference like Ernest Hemingway. We have to build up on other things. So what you're seeing here are some of the photos that Andy actually took when they went out on a research trip to Florida that we are translating into Lego. Now, sometimes we'll copy it straight like you're seeing here. Other times we're going to look for something that just gives us an idea, and we'll sort of get a little bit more creative and do our interpretation of something that we saw. And sometimes we stretch it even further, and we'll have to go, okay, here's this thing that we really want to build, but there's no way to build it at a 4-inch scale, 4 inches high. So we have to kind of mess around with those details, reorganize things. But like Mandy said about doing a caricature, if we get those key things, people are still going to recognize it, even though it's not identical.
One thing, when I'm going back into what I was saying before, research pictures.
Hey, wait a minute. Is that me?
Oh, did we not mention that?
I'm in Miniland?
Sorry, you're in Miniland, yeah.
Awesome.
He honestly had no idea that we put him in there. So there's Andy from the research trip, and we threw him in front of one of the models, so we just like to make fun of our coworkers and have fun.
But sometimes we like to pull other references that aren't so inside the shop, and we'll pull things like the infamous sad Keanu. Now, we weren't sure in doing a joke like this whether or not other people were going to get it besides us. Fortunately, about a week from the park in Florida opening, over 26 different sites online had featured this particular Lego model out of the thousands that we had put into Miniland.
So it's all come together. We've got the plan for where all the buildings are going to go. Mandy's worked out how these buildings are going to look. Megan's constructed them all, and we've all been figuring out all these little scenes to put into Miniland. But the most amazing part of it is we couldn't have, any one of us, done it by ourselves. We couldn't have even imagined it. All I need to do is imagine the city, and Mandy needs to imagine the buildings. But together, when we're building on all these ideas, we create this thing, which is this living, breathing city that is just made out of these tiny plastic bricks. So you might say we need a super team of people who might all just wear capes one day to support us in that. So our challenge to you is, as you're designing your future, whether you're working with Lego bricks or you're building a project or you're composing a symphony, whatever it may be, to find the super team and the state of mind that lets you go beyond your brick, whatever your brick may be.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.